Changes have been made official in the Panthers front office as Matthew Caldwell is no longer with the Panthers organization, but he left it better than he found it.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, August 27th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Shout out to every day who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season's around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. And Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers, including some changes that are going on in the front office that have been made official, with Matthew Caldwell, former CEO of the team, will now be taking a position with the Minnesota Timberwolves of the NBA / Minnesota Lynx for the same position, being a CEO in one organization, growing within the organization even before, was a guy who came in at the same time with the Violas in 2014, where this team had a lot of turmoil, had to convince the Broward County commissioners to keep the team in the region as far as what they were going to do economically, if this was a team that was going to move the economic needle, and it surely has. And now 2 Stanley Cup championships later for this organization, 3 conference championships, a President's Trophy. Now he gets his big promotion and gets to do what's best for his family. And the split that was as smooth as can be when it comes to him and everything. But let's go right to the statements from both Matthew Caldwell and Vinny Viola. So we're going to start with the statement from Matthew Caldwell saying, quote, "These past 9 years as CEO of the Florida Panthers have been the highlight of my professional career. The Viola family have been a second family, and I will forever be grateful for the opportunity that have led this historic franchise turnaround. I am ready for the next challenge and couldn't be more thrilled to bring our championship mindset to the Minnesota community. The Panthers franchise is in great hands with the executive team and hockey leadership in place, and I will be cheering from afar as the team continues its championship run," close quote. And then the statement from the Viola family: "Since joining the Panthers in 2014, Matt has led by example, serving our employees, clients, and fans and the South Florida community with passion and professionalism. His determination drove our franchise turnaround and helped instill a culture of excellence, and now he is ready for his next challenge. These are the few opportunities I would advise him to pursue, but working with Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lohr on a global platform like the NBA is at the top of that list. It's tremendously bittersweet for our family. We recognize this as an exceptional opportunity and great next step in his career. Matt's impact on our organization has been immeasurable, and he leaves with our respect and gratitude," close quote. So yeah, Matthew Caldwell growing with the organization, and also just where his background is and how he fits with what the Viola family and their values are, as a guy who knows business and a guy who has an appreciation for those of the military. And obviously you see it with what their projects were, as far as War Memorial Auditorium and the Baptist Health Iceplex, and as well as what they do as far as honoring a military member every home game that they do. Matthew Caldwell is one that served in the Army from 1984 to 1988, and also got his master's degree at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. So definitely a guy who is lived. He is the example of someone who has lived the American dream. When we talk about how it's spoken about and how we're taught about it in schools, about moving up the corporate ladder, and this is certainly what Matthew Caldwell has done. We give a lot of credit to Bill Zito as far as like the roster moves that he's made, but that hire doesn't happen without the work done by Vinny Viola, Michael Viola, and also Matthew Caldwell here. And how this news started to come out a little publicly, which was made official by the team Wednesday morning, shortly after the nationally televised schedule came out. So I started hearing about Matthew Caldwell's departure on Monday. That's when I first heard about it. But last week, there was the announcement of Chief Operating Officer Bryce Holwig that he has left the organization, and Chief Revenue Officer Sean Thornton, former Panther and former Bruin as well, that he has left the organization as well. And then I got a message from someone saying that Matthew Caldwell is joining those guys along with leaving the organization. I messaged the likes of a David Dwork, our friend of the show and my colleague here at the Hockey News, discussing, have you heard anything about Matthew Caldwell leaving the organization? And said, the reason, and he told me that the reason why he posted those stories about Holweg and Sean Thornton leaving the organization is because those were the only ones that were confirmed. But he had also heard about Matthew Caldwell, but he couldn't make it official as he also tried messaging people around. And one of the sources that from the organization did not reply to either of us when it came to asking about Matthew Caldwell. The team wanted to do it on their terms. It's tight-lipped when it comes to the messaging about what's going on there. And hey, they didn't allow us reporters to report it first, and they wanted to do it once again on theirs. But let's talk about kind of the elephant in the room here when it comes to just the promotion that Matthew Caldwell is getting and the connection that there is with the management there for the Minnesota Timberwolves / Minnesota Lynx, because it's the same ownership group there. And it's the A-Rod connection. Alex Rodriguez, former #1 overall pick from the Seattle Mariners, played baseball at Westminster Christian School after starting his time at Columbus High School in West Miami-Dade, which living as a student at FIU, I dealt with the traffic that came with the annual Columbus High School versus Belen Jesuit game every single year. So I got a little bit of a taste of how rich tradition when it came to at least Columbus High School when it came to their sports. And he transferred out of there and made a decent baseball career for himself. PR perspective, not the best, but hey, maybe hiring Matthew Caldwell definitely helps with the PR when it comes to A-Rod's image and everything. And also, let's not forget that A-Rod followed kind of in the footsteps of his friend, Derek Jeter, who was formerly part owner of the Miami Marlins for a time, right after, but just a few years later, Jeter gave up his stake in the team, giving it back to Bruce Sherman, and because of promises that were not kept, is the best way to put that when it comes to Derek Jeter's time as part owner of the Fish. But you think about Matthew Caldwell and the promises kept with the Panthers organization and what they were able to do on just how differently they were able to just record the attendance even for the Panthers. As a fan, I felt growing up as a fan, I felt embarrassed even when years later, even when the Panthers were starting to knock on the door of being a championship contender, and fans from up north and different fan bases were starting to put those photos up there of opening night 2014 of less than 8,000 fans in the arena at the time. And to think that the Panthers went from that to sell out crowds even on a Tuesday night, and that has a lot to do with the work that Matthew Caldwell has done off the ice. The relationships with the community, the corporate sponsor, getting the arena rights deal for the Panthers, signing an extension with the county, and having some clauses, opt-in and opt-out clauses as well. So that is that for when A-Rod, a South Florida native, sees that with the Florida Panthers and seeing that the Minnesota Timberwolves have only made one conference final in the last 20-25 years. I think the last time before that was when Kevin Garnett was with the Minnesota Timberwolves. They just made the conference final recently, but they didn't make it to the NBA finals. That is also kind of the stability that the Minnesota Timberwolves are looking for. And seeing that what it was in Alex Rodriguez's backyard, he wants to bring some of that culture into the Minnesota Timberwolves organization. Yeah, the NBA is a bigger brand than the NHL. We can't deny it. You're gonna possibly take more responsibilities if you're Matthew Caldwell. He wouldn't be taking this if it wasn't a big pay raise. So he's doing everything that's best for his family. He gets his name on the Stanley Cup. He gets to lift it. And when Panther fans hear the name Matthew Caldwell, it's a big smile on the face because he made a lasting impact here. And honestly, I'm happy for him. I can't be mad at all when it comes to the changes here. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2 and discuss some of the promotions that are going on within the Florida Panthers organization, and whether the fans should actually be concerned about these changes. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. And most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear date visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use Locked On NHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code Locked On NHL. Segment number 2 here on this Wednesday, August 27th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So some of the promotions that have gone on in the organization for the Panthers is Rob Stevenson is now the COO for the Chief Operating Officer for the Florida Panthers after serving as the Executive Vice President of People and Facilities for 3 seasons. And this is the role as described by the Florida Panthers organization in their release, that Stevenson, quote, will continue to lead operations, facilities management, and event services while adding oversight of live entertainment, hospitality, Panthers Ice Den, and Fort Lauderdale War Memorial Complex, close quote. And then the next one is Mark Zarther, promoted to Chief Revenue Officer, replacing Sean Thornton's position, where he served as the Chief Strategy Officer over the last 2 years. And another description from the organization is, quote, Zarther will continue to oversee business intelligence, brand strategy, broadcast communications, and ticket operations while adding responsibility for corporate partnerships, tickets, sales, and service, close quote. So 2 different roles for these guys when it comes to community versus the what's coming internally as far as the revenue for the organization. So congratulations on those 2 and on their new roles. And when it comes to the CEO for the Panthers, on who's going to be the new one for the Panthers, that has yet to be announced for the team. And the one who will lead the search for the organization will be Michael Viola, the son of Vinny Viola here, when it comes to who is going to oversee everything as far as the business side and management for the Panthers here. So should fans feel concerned about the Florida Panthers organization with this change now that Matthew Caldwell is no longer here in South Florida? And I say no. And the thing is, like I said at the very beginning in the cold open, that Matthew Caldwell left this place better than how he found it. Lasting impact here for what he's done, and the blueprint is there. All you just got to do is follow the same footsteps. Yeah, there's going to be brand new ideas that are going to be with the organization, and just like how we spoke about the shared values that Matthew Caldwell had with Vinny Viola, he's going to look for that exact same thing for his new guy. Someone who knows business, someone who values, has the same values as far as honoring the military veterans that they've consistently done. And that is going to be kind of the direction where they are going to go. And so I think when you think about that, Bill Zito being promoted to not only having the GM role, but also the president of hockey operations, the president / CEO of the team, the guy above Bill Zito, is still going to allow Bill Zito to do his thing. They're going to let the hockey people do the hockey operations, transactions, whether it's adding or subtracting. So they're going to leave those people to do their thing, and that's the great thing about, if you want to call Vinny Viola a quote unquote hands off owner, I don't necessarily believe that there's necessarily such thing when it comes to and hands off can mean anything when it comes to when it comes to how when you let people do their thing. And and the fact is that there's no interference. Uh, there wasn't interference in Matthew Caldwell and not allowing Bill Zito to make a move. They always put in good faith with the general manager, them knowing that them giving him faith that he's going to do what is best for the organization and consistently giving them their blessing. That's the kind of route that I'm trying to head there when it comes to that. So the fact that the core 10 still crazy to think that it's calling themselves the core 10 is going to be around until 2030. You're going to see a second Stanley Cup championship banner when October 7th comes around, when the Panthers host the Chicago Blackhawks. New scoreboard, practice facility is already in place. So when it comes to the model stays the same. What it's all about when it comes to the Florida Panthers is just winning a championship. Nothing more, nothing less, and that is going to be consistent throughout the next CEO, whoever it may be, for this organization. So as far as the concern level, you won't see any from my part. Everything is, and if there are going to be any concerns, it's probably going to be passed after what's going to happen once this core is no longer in the mix. And honestly, like looking at past championships in the NHL, who have kind of struggled to gain uh, uh, gain momentum as far as playoff runs and also fan engagement. The real challenge for the Florida Panthers organization is what's going to happen after the fact, of who they're going to get when it comes to corporate sponsors and everything outside of that. Thankfully for the organization, they've done so many things around the arena. They Club Big Red is transitioned to the Amerant Vault, which they've the renovations for that place have been A+. I haven't heard a single complaint about it. The former Den of Honor has been transitioned to the Jameson Crossbar. So that's another thing for as far as fan engagement. We spoke about how multiple times how they're going to take some fan seat sections out of the arena and make it more standing room only, kind of similarly to what the Tampa Bay Lightning have. And what the work that they're doing around the arena, that's not stopping just because Matthew Caldwell is leaving the organization. That is in place, and it's currently in the works. Not necessarily as far as a shovel in the ground, as far as what's going on outside of the arena and with the seats. Step one is the scoreboard. And honestly, if the Panthers make another Stanley Cup championship run, it's only going to delay the building of what's going to be the new fan section for what is to come in the future. But that is something really to look forward to. And the fact is that this is a franchise that is going to stay due to their lease extension. That is really what turned from hope into reality when it comes to all the work that has been done by everyone involved. And like if we are gonna discuss, it starts at the top, that quote, when it comes to when things go bad, we gotta keep that same energy when it comes to when things go right for any organization in any sports league. And that is where I will sing the praises of this, of what everyone has done here. And coming in at the same time, Matthew Caldwell and Vinny Viola, what it will forever be something that fans can look back and say and think with so much gratitude, just like how Vinny Viola said in his statement, gratitude. And in any field, you wanna make leave a legacy, and also when you leave, get also the blessing from your former boss and say, go on to bigger and better ventures. And the old saying, "Oh, the places you go" by Dr. Seuss. And it's a perfect example of the Caldwell legacy in South Florida. And honestly, I will be cheering for Matthew Caldwell's new team, the Minnesota Timberwolves, unless they're playing the Miami Heat. So best of luck to Matthew Caldwell in his new position with the Minnesota Timberwolves slash Minnesota Lynx. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to discuss the nationally televised schedule that has been released, where the Panthers stand as far as months, TV network, and comparison to the rest of the teams in the NHL. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5 if your bet wins. You'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And the reason to use FanDuel is it makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. Although FanDuel Futures Day has passed here, there's still time to place your bets for this upcoming season about whether you believe that the Miami Dolphins will win the AFC East. If you think that Tyreek Hill is possibly going to get a 1,000-yard season, bouncing back possibly this year, or who is going to win the MVP in the NFL. Will Josh Allen do it once again, or will Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes be able to chase him and also take back their MVPs? So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift card. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find a link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. So, right before the news of Matthew Caldwell becoming public, of him leaving the Panthers organization, the NHL and their TV partners, ESPN/Disney and Turner Sports, announced their nationally televised schedule. So we only knew 2 at the time of the actual schedule release. We knew opening night that the Panthers were going to be facing off against the Chicago Blackhawks at 5 p.m. Still in I'm still annoyed with the fact that they are getting a 5 p.m. matchup for the Stanley Cup champions, but they want to prioritize the Rangers and the Penguins, Mike Sullivan facing against his former team there on opening night. And we knew about the Winter Classic, 8 p.m. on Friday, January 2nd, 2026, from Lone Depot Park in Little Havana, just a few miles from the Panthers' first home of the Miami Arena. So a little bit of details on the national TV schedule for the NHL is that the NHL will have 172 in the U.S. Total throughout the networks, which is the most ever, and that the NHL on TNT will be exclusive broadcasts, so no regional broadcasts to conflict. So if you see TNT next to the game that you want to watch, you can't. There's no home or away broadcast to line up to it. So those markets will be of each will be tuning into TNT. So sometimes you would have that situation where if Detroit especially was on a nationally televised game, they would also have FanDuel Sports Network Detroit also broadcasting it, but it's exclusively this year to TNT. ESPN has consistently had that throughout their TV deal. So when it comes to the Panthers and how often they're going to be on the national stage, 15 times throughout the season, and at least once per month. So the Panthers are tied for 10th in most nationally televised game. And honestly, for a back-to-back champion and a non-traditional market, honestly, I'm pleased. Last year it was 12. The year before it was, I believe, 10. So moving on up for the Panthers and more national exposure. So other fans are going to be more tired of the Florida Panthers because they're going to see them at least once a month. So in the month of October, they're going to be on the national stage 3 times. In the month of November, once. December, twice. January, February, twice each. March, they're going to be on the going to have a nationally televised game 4 times. And then in April, 1 game, which that 1 game will be the very last game of the season when the Panthers do host the Detroit Red Wings. So that one I'm a little confused by when it comes to the Panthers, because chances are they're going to be preparing for the playoffs and also likely not going to be playing their main guys possibly in that game, as we saw how the Panthers manage things. And the fact that they have 4 in the month of March, that is where I hope that national broadcasters are more careful when it comes to talking about possible concern level if the Panthers have a little bit of a dip in that month as we approach the end of the regular season. So some of the rematches that we will see of the Panthers playoff matchups throughout the years is we're going to see the Panthers face off against the Leafs on a national game in December on ESPN Plus. We're gonna see Barkov versus McKinnon in December in Colorado. We did mention the Winter Classic for the Panthers versus Rangers. We're going to see them face against the Leafs. 2 nationally televised games against the Boston Bruins, including Brad Marchand's first game back at the TD Garden so early in the season as well. So that is going to be a pretty spicy matchup there, and lots of excitement on a Tuesday in October. We'll see them play against the Lightning in a nationally televised matchup. We'll see them play against an exciting, in my opinion, at least I find them exciting, a New Jersey Devils team who may be knocking on the door. If they're healthy, they may be on the verge of going to the playoffs as well. They might be one of those bubble teams. If Matthew Schaefer is still with the New York Islanders, he may play his 9 games before going back to junior, or he may play a good handful of games in the New York organization for the Islanders before going back to Erie, where he played in the OHL, maybe after the World Juniors. So there's still questions on whether Matthew Schaefer is actually going to make the Islanders. So interesting why they chose the Panthers versus Islanders there when the Islanders are possibly not going to be making the playoffs there. But for the Panthers here, I'm going to do also a network breakdown on how many games they'll have in ESPN, how many on ESPN Plus and TNT. So 6 games on ESPN, 3 games on ESPN Plus, and then 6 on TNT. So if you haven't cut the cord yet on regular cable, you'll only be really missing out on 3 games if you are in the South Florida region. Obviously, there's also a new direct-to-consumer product that is coming out, and that you could watch all ESPN programming without having a cable subscription, which ESPN and Fox are actually teaming up to have all in one, to have both ESPN programming and Fox in the same one. So that's also a little bit of a difference as far as like how you get access to Florida Panthers hockey, if that's the direction that you guys want to go to. Interesting here, where and this starts with how you do the schedule to begin with, even before the national TV schedule does come out, is neither of the Panthers Stanley Cup rematches against the Edmonton Oilers will be on the national stage. So the first one that the Panthers will be facing off against the Oilers will be on November 19th. That's a Saturday. So what's going on in Saturday, November? College football. So ESPN has the rights to college football. So do the other main networks, and TNT Sports has started to dip their toes also in college football. So there's programming there as well. So that Saturday for the Panthers there, they will not be on the national stage against the Edmonton Oilers. And then the other one, March 19th, that's the first Thursday of NCAA March Madness, where CBS and TNT Sports are contractually obligated to showcase the NCAA tournament until 2032. So that is where their contract stands as far as airing the tournament. So still many years that they are going to be covering it. So this is the thing, ESPN doesn't want to put any not even basketball on ESPN to conflict with the NCAA tournament. But this would have been an opportunity for Disney and ESPN to possibly put this as an ESPN Plus exclusive. And this is the thing. The Panthers and Oilers originally had a game on ESPN Plus last year in the regular season. And then that was replaced by Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, two teams who were not making the playoffs. By the way, when it comes to some of the teams who are ahead of the Panthers as far as nationally televised games, Washington leads the way with 18. And the reason that being Alexander Ovechkin's last season in the NHL. I mean, his contract's up. At least that's the speculation that it will be his last year. But some of the other teams that have 17 and 16, that are ahead of the Panthers, Boston, Colorado, Detroit, some traditional markets, some original six teams, Dallas, Edmonton, Minnesota, New York, Rangers, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So a little bit of even though the Pittsburgh Penguins are in a rebuild, and also their team is up for sale. The Fenway Sports Group is also trying to sell the Penguins. They want to get as much Sidney Crosby as they can there. And of course, a lot of New York Rangers, a lot of Connor McDavid, which, funny enough, the Edmonton Oilers and have 16 nationally televised games with the Connor McDavid effect. The Toronto Maple Leafs have 15, but neither the Habs, Senators, Winnipeg Jets, nor Vancouver Canucks have any national TV games in the U.S. But hey, at least the NHL is doing justice by marketing superstars, which Austin Matthews is a superstar, Connor McDavid's a superstar, and also there's going to be a very interesting season in Toronto based on what has happened in the lineup due to Mitch Marner leaving with the cap catching up to them, and him and everything that he went through in Toronto with that fan base and how they turned on him. I would argue more that they turned on him more than he turned on the fans when it comes to that. So also, here's the thing about this schedule for the Panthers and where they are at the national stage. There's no games against the Carolina Hurricanes on the national stage. I mean, I feel like that we feel that is more of an important game for these two teams as opposed to what neutral fans want to see. I get that there's no big personalities on the Carolina Hurricanes, and the fact is that they haven't really blown that door open just yet. And the fact is that these series between these two teams haven't necessarily been close in the last two times that they've faced. I can understand why that they have chosen not to go into the direction of putting either of the matchups between the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes as a nationally televised game. So kind of understand that one. But I mean, I hope that in the future that, hey, who knows, maybe if we see another Stanley Cup final matchup between the Panthers and the Oilers, that before the national TV schedule comes out to begin with, that the NHL puts them in a position so that they can get those games, knowing that the ESPN and TNT window, so that that fans could see a matchup between two teams that have learned to hate each other. Although these teams are 2,500 miles apart from each other, there's history, and that with history comes a little bit of hate when it comes to these two teams, and the fact that one hasn't been able to get over the hump against the other. So that's the one thing that I'm hoping for the NHL. But hey, although there's 15 games for the Panthers as of right now that they are going to be on the national stage, there's also room for changes in the schedule, which the NHL will release through their NHL public relations site, and we will be first to inform you here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But that's going to do it for today's edition of the show. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We'll be back with you guys on Friday to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. And who knows, we might get another news dump on some changes, whether it's the front office or maybe something on the roster. Who knows with what's going on. But hey, it's great to have some storylines to discuss here in the month of August, as we are right now 41 days away from opening night. Thank you guys once again, as always, for listening. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.